We at the Everything Red Deer podcast acknowledge that it is recorded on Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 land, as well as on a historic gathering place of the Métis. We thank the elders and knowledge keepers who remain with us today and those who've gone before us. This acknowledgement is small, but meant nonetheless as an act of reconciliation and gratitude.
Local, credible, now. You're listening to the Everything Red Deer podcast, powered by rdnewsNOW. We talk to the movers, shakers, and newsmakers around Red Deer and Central Alberta, then bring those interviews to you. And now, here's your host, Josh Hall.
Welcome back to the Everything Red Deer podcast. Are you staying warm? We've had quite the cold spell lately. Temperatures dipping to below minus 40 with the wind chill on several occasions over the last couple weeks. But hey, it's Valentine's Day. If you observe this occurrence on the calendar, happy Valentine's Day to you. I have the unfortunate task of informing everybody that Red Deer, nor any other community in Central Alberta, made this year's top 10 sexiest cities list as put out annually by Pink Cherry. But Calgary and Edmonton, 2 and 3 on that list. Go figure. Red Deer somewhere in the middle, I guess. If you're cold, maybe you can snuggle up with your loved one. There you go. It's, of course, always important when it's this cold to also think about the city's folks who are experiencing homelessness. Agencies like Safe Harbor, the Mustard Seed, and Turning Point are often running campaigns to collect warm clothing, and you can check out their social media pages or give them a call for their latest efforts. This Monday, in fact, February 17th, it is Socky Day in Red Deer. This is an annual event the Red Deer Rebels put on to collect warm socks for individuals and families in need across Central Alberta, and in partnership with United Way Central Alberta. Here's how it works. You head on down to the Rebels game this Monday. It's a 2 p.m. puck drop on Family Day against Edmonton. Bring new socks with you, 1 pair, 2 pair, red pair, blue pair. It doesn't matter. However many you're able. During the second intermission, there will be a special opportunity to throw all of those socks onto the ice. Keep them in the packaging, of course. It's kind of like the teddy bear toss that the teams do every year, but with this, it's at a set time during the second intermission, as I say. The goal this year is 5,500 pairs of socks. So get your Rebels tickets for this Monday and make it the greatest Socky Day in Red Deer yet. All right. We have another fun episode of the Everything Red Deer podcast today. You're going to hear a couple of interviews back-to-back in just a few minutes. First, Seamus Neeson with Canadian Blood Services here in Red Deer. Seamus was in and he shared some really great insight on what the blood donation process is like, how not scary it is, and he'll elaborate on why they need you to step up to give blood. Seamus has donated blood over 300 times. After that, we welcome to the podcast a good friend of the rdnewsNOW newsroom, Mr. Claude Lapomme, music director and conductor with the Red Deer Symphony Orchestra. And we found out this week that Mr. Lapomme is once again nominated for a Juno Award, this time as part of an album by Canadian soprano Karina Gauvin. The nomination is for Classical Album of the Year Small Ensemble, which is the same category in which Claude won a Juno 2 years ago with his group Rosa Barocca. Before we get there, though, a reminder to check out rdnewsnow.com. We have great coverage this week of stories such as the Mayor's State of the City address to the Red Deer Chamber, the latest on the situation involving the Premier's office and the Alberta Health Services procurement contracts, as well as coverage of this week's Red Deer City Council meeting, and much, much more. That much more over on our entertainment page includes details about the Hunting Hills Theatre program performing Into the Woods, March 5th to 7th at the RDP Arts Centre. All right, without further ado, we'll take a brief break and then our conversations with Canadian Blood Services and Claude Lapomme. Joining us on the Everything Red Deer podcast now is Seamus Neeson, and he is the Community Development Manager at Canadian Blood Services for Red Deer and Central Alberta. Thanks for joining us today, Seamus.
Thanks for having me.
So, We hear from Canadian Blood Services quite often in the rdnewsNOW newsroom, and for good reason. There's always a great demand for blood and all of its components, which includes platelets, plasma, red blood cells. So how about we start by telling the folks what the current campaign is that Canadian Blood Services has going on right now and what the message is that you're trying to get across to folks.
Absolutely. The campaign is called the 450 Challenge. And what that kind of connects with is the need for 450 new donors every day across Canada to donate blood just to keep up with hospital demands. Now, when you look at how Red Deer is connected with this, obviously we're not the same size as a Calgary, a Vancouver, or Toronto. So our little bit of that 450 challenge breaks down to being 10 donations, 10 people to donate every day, 10 new donors to donate every day for the 450 challenge for Red Deer.
Is that a number that's usually easy to hit, or do you find people just are hesitant to come in and donate?
I think it's a bit of both, if I could be honest. I mean, when you look at the size of Red Deer, getting 10 people in a day to donate blood for the first time on paper shouldn't be difficult, but there is a lot of fear that still exists out there, a fear of the unknown. People that have never donated blood, they're scared of blood, they're scared of needles, they don't know what to expect. And really, my job is to bring people in. I need to fill the clinic to make sure patients get blood, but I also have been tasked to talk to people to explain how easy the process is.
So you've donated blood, you told me behind the scenes here, 301 times?
301 times, yes.
So what is a little bit of the science behind that, and what are the impacts of donating?
Sure. Okay, so the reason that my number is so high is because I lived in Calgary for many years, and you could donate plasma in Calgary. You could donate plasma every week in Calgary. So when you hear donors that have donated 1,600 times in their lifetime, it's because they've been doing it every week for many, many, many years. Now that I'm in a position where I'm donating whole blood, it's slightly different, meaning that you could only donate as a male 4 times a year as opposed to 50 or 52. But at the end of the day, you're still donating to save someone's life. When you're donating plasma, it's 1 unit of plasma that's going to 1 person. When you're donating whole blood, that's where those ads kind of tie in. Every time you donate blood, you're saving the lives of 3 people. That was our national ad for years. And the way to break that down is that when you donate whole blood, it gets fractionated into 3 different pieces. You've got the plasma, you've got the platelets, which is something you could also donate by itself every 2 weeks in Calgary and in Edmonton, and lastly, the red blood cells. And each 3 of those things is designed to help different things, we'll say. For example, cancer patients, where most of our blood donations go, will use a lot of plasma. Fire, if you're in a fire and you need skin grafts, platelets is your friend, and whole blood is something that could go to people that are recovering from surgeries or car accidents.
I know myself growing up, I always associate Canadian Blood Services with the slogan, "It's in you to give." Is that still a mantra that the organization goes by?
Well, it changes every couple of years, just like any marketing or branding. But I think that is a very strong statement. I think a lot of people will remember that for their life. Blood, it is in you to give. It does change. Right now, it's Join Canada's Lifeline because it takes many people to help a few, for example. And I find that once you get someone donating blood for the first time, they suddenly become lifelong blood donors because they realize really quickly that this process that they had built up so bad in their head that it was going to hurt, it was going to be scary, all of a sudden doesn't. And it's not scary, that they're like, I could have been doing this for years.
You were at Red Deer Polytechnic earlier this week for a bit of a blood drive, trying to bring some awareness to staff and even students as well. Are youth really important in this conversation in terms of getting new donors? We talk about youth being, the folks of tomorrow, but I mean, if we're talking about getting new donors, like youth must play a big role in that.
Absolutely, and you've nailed it on the head. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who came by to see me this week at Red Deer Polytechnic. There was a lot of beautiful faces that were coming by asking a lot of smart questions, which is nice to see. Now, the reason that we are always looking for new donors with the younger population is when you look at the donor base of Canadian Blood Services, you'll see that there's two larger age groups which compose of most of our donor base. One is the younger population, and the second is the older population. And the reason that we're always looking for new donors in the high school and post-secondary age is because the older demographic, which is, again, a large percentage of our donor base, is reaching that age in life where they need more medication or they'll need extra care. Meaning that they might not be able to donate blood because all of a sudden they're on blood thinners, or let's say they're on high blood pressure medication, they can't donate. So it's really up to us to get those new donors in to make sure that we always have the blood that people will need.
Someone wakes up one day and they're like, okay, I want to donate blood today. So they head to Canadian Blood Services on the north end of Red Deer. They walk through the door. Take us through the step-by-step process.
Okay, so there's two things they could do when they wake up. They could either go online to blood.ca. There is a link that's commonly asked questions, FAQs and whatnot. There's an eligibility quiz on there as well. So let's say you've never donated blood. You're like, I have no idea if I can do this or not. Save yourself the trip. Take that quiz and you'll find out right away if you can or cannot. If you have any medical kind of questions, let's say for a prime example, you're taking medication for something in your life and you're like, I don't know if I could donate blood. I'm on these pills.
That's me, actually.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
If you call 1-888-2DONATE, talk to a nurse who are available almost 24 hours a day and say, hi, my name is Seamus. I'm looking to donate blood, except I'm taking these pills. I'm on this medication. They'll ask you what it is, how often you got to take it, and then they'll just look it up in the system, and then you will know right away whether or not you can or cannot donate blood. So you wake up, you go online. Let's say you just happen to be driving by and you're like, you know what, I got time right now. You can pull in, pop your head in, and 9 times out of 10, we can take walk-in appointments. You could just make your appointment that way. You could even just see if there's a nurse available to talk to right away. And once you get the green light, you could proceed from there. A lot of people think that it's a big time commitment. Now, realistically, what we say throughout any of our blood donor centers across Canada is we tell donors you got to be expecting, you expect to be in our clinics for about an hour, waiting for your name to be called. The reality with Red Deer is that we're so fast that from the minute you walk in to the minute you're leaving, eating your weight in Oreos, we're looking at about 35 minutes. You know, it's a Matlock episode. So when people say, I got no time, I combat that quite easily.
Yes, it doesn't take very long, and then the next best part about it is you get to have a treat before you walk out. So
absolutely, and we also feed you when you walk in too. So it's a win-win scenario.
All right. So I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned to me earlier also that you've not only donated blood 301 times, you've also donated a kidney.
I did, and that was quite the experience.
Yeah. So my question for you is, why should people consider being an organ donor, or maybe they want to donate blood? Why should that maybe be a little bit more top of mind for folks?
That's an excellent question, and it does fit in with Canadian Blood Services because Canadian Blood Services does handle organ transplants as well. We have an organs and tissues department, and that's what they do all day, every day, 365 days a year. For me, for donating my kidney, it's a long story, but I'll make it short. Basically, in a nutshell, I had just completed a blood donation, and I was eating my cookies and having a cup of coffee, and I was scrolling on Facebook, and a mutual friend of mine had posted that a friend of hers was looking for a kidney, and I was feeling quite generous, and I reached out to say, hey, I'm interested, tell me more. They put me in contact with the Canadian Transplant Association. They've got a living donor program based out of the Foothills Hospital in Calgary. And I was able to ask them some questions about the process, just like you just asked me about donating blood. And it's not an overnight thing. I was going through these tests for many, many, many months. And ultimately, it was a friend of mine from high school that I hadn't seen in 22 years. my girlfriend reached out to say, hey, a friend of a friend's husband is looking for a kidney. And I was like, well, this is funny. Because I can give one. So basically, I reached out to him on Facebook. I said, hey, buddy, it's been a while. I heard you need a kidney. I'm here to help you with one. And then we just kind of connected from there. He didn't know his blood type either. This was a brand new life event for him. He had been told that his kidney function was to the point that he now needed dialysis 3 times a week, 4 hours per session. So as you can understand, it's a pretty big time commitment. So I reached out and I said, I could help you. We connected. I found out his blood type. And I said, okay, you need to reach out to the Canadian Transplant Association, the Living Donor Program, to say, hey, I need a kidney. I've got a buddy of mine who's willing to do it. So then we went through testing to find out if we were a biological match. Once we got that green light, all we needed to do was set that date to go through the surgery, and bada bing, bada boom. I got adopted into a Portuguese family. What do the Portuguese like to do? They like to eat, and so do I. So it was a win-win scenario.
That's really awesome and inspiring as well. I've had the privilege of being in the clinic, even though I can't donate because of the medication I'm on. I've been able to meet some really nice families in there who've had great stories, success stories of having blood donated or they donated blood. I think it's safe to say, Seamus, whether it's the Red Deer Rebels doing a blood drive or Red Deer Emergency Services, or if we're talking about kidney or organ donation, and you've heard about the Logan Boulet story out of Humboldt, it's never a bad time to donate blood. Whether it's a family day coming up or any holiday, there's always spots that need to be filled, right?
I want to expand on that to say it's never a bad day to help somebody. Mr. Rogers always said, look for the helpers in our society. And I consider blood donors to be the elite. They are the helpers of our society. Even if you donate once a year as a family, that's more than most Canadians do. When you look at the stats, 1 out of every 2 Canadians can donate blood, but 1 out of 76 actually do, which breaks down to like 1 point something % of the population of Canada who are the helpers. So if you want to become a helper and become a blood donor, there's no bad signs here, no bad things. You know, you're saving someone's life and you're there to help someone.
Her name escapes me, but there's actually a woman here in Central Alberta. Maybe you know who I'm talking about, but she actually has the world record for most donations.
Absolutely, I know that woman. Yeah, and she's based in Penhold. Yeah. And for the month of February, we've got the Penhold Cares campaign. And basically, this is the second year we've been doing it. She made it into the Guinness Book of World Records for 2024, I think it was. It might be 2023. But she's inspired an entire movement coming out of Penhold because we have like an internal competition between other municipalities. Sylvan Lake is part of this. The village of Clive, just outside of Red Deer, won it last year, and they're looking to keep their title alive this year. So it brings people together, not because of the competition, but because they know the impact that donating blood has, and they want to get in on that. They want to be a helper.
I was just looking up her name here, Josephine McCalloch. Hope I'm saying that right. So good on her, and good on everybody if they wake up one day and they want to start going through the steps to donate blood or donate an organ. That's great. And if you want to do that again, head to blood.ca or
give us a call at 1-888 to donate.
Thank you.
You can also download the Give Blood app onto your smartphone.
We welcome on now Claude Lapalme of the Red Deer Symphony Orchestra, nominated this week for a Juno Award as part of a new album from Karina Gauvin, nominated in the category of Classical Album of the Year Small Ensemble. Claude, thank you so much for joining us. Take us through the process and talk a bit about your role on the album.
Yeah, I mean, the project was the idea of celebrated Canadian soprano Karina Gauvin, whom I've known for a while, and I've worked with her as a performer. But she knew that I was a gifted arranger. In the course of several years, she had this idea that really crystallized, actually, during COVID when she was in isolation, and she'd be working. She had made a bubble with a pianist in Montreal named Pierre McLean, and her and Pierre would get together, I think, once a week, maybe twice a week, and they'd go to stuff. And some of the stuff they would go through were folk songs, and especially from a collection that was compiled in Quebec over the course of a couple of generations, for consumption by families, amateur players, for parlor type stuff. A collection of folk songs and some original songs in the style of folk songs called La Bonne Chanson, the good song, the beautiful song, La Bonne Chanson. And she had gone through this, and some of them were really, really excellent arrangements for piano and voice. And she approached me to see if they could be used as the basis of new arrangements where, the beginning of the song could be kind of a straight orchestration of the first verse, but then after that sort of go in different directions with it in terms of color and narrative and storytelling using instruments. And so we decided to do it for 5 strings of string quintet, woodwind quintet, which is all 4 woodwinds plus a horn, a piano, because we really wanted to include Pierre in there because he was part of one of the ways the ideas germinated, you could say, was from him, and a harp. And these songs she put in a particular order in order to make a show, which we've done already once, and we're trying to take to France right now. Each song corresponds to a place in the narrative of a life, and that life is one of her first ancestors who came to Quebec from France. And this is very important because the album is called Marie Hubert, which is her ancestor. Marie Hubert, fille du roi, king's daughter. And that's the program of Quebec repopulation that existed in the 17th century, where a bunch of single women basically applied to see if they had, the necessary qualities to go to Quebec and marry. Take the boat trip, go all the way there, marry, and then have a bazillion children. And there's about 800 of them who did that. And Marie Hubert is one of them. And by choosing a particular order, she has this narrative of her, being born in France and taking this trip and marrying, and her first husband dying, and her remarrying and having children and doing the work and all of that. And she chose all of the songs to mirror that. And the album was recorded at the very end of, I think the end of COVID, 2022, but it was not released until last spring in 2024, which is why it's nominated now for Juno for Best Classical Album for Small Ensemble for the Junos. There's a really good French article, which is a review in Le Devoir. And if you could get that translated, you could have, it's a nice interview with Karina. Karina's in Japan right now. She doesn't know. She won't know until, I know, for another 3-4 hours.
So for you, though, and again, I'm going to make it 100% clear that this is a very collaborative effort, but obviously Karina, she is the lead on this project. But what does it mean to you to be, a part of another Juno-nominated project?
Oh, it's just extraordinary. Because you get isolated in central Alberta. And all of a sudden, to get 2 nominations like this in 2 years, and actually winning one in 2023, is remarkable. It's kind of saying that all of that work that I've been doing over the years, kind of secretly almost, you could say, a little bit in hiding, that all of it is worthwhile, that, it's recognized by my peers. And this is great. I've been joking all today that if Karina gets this Juno, then basically I got a Juno for conducting in 2023. I'd get a Juno 2025 for well, I am the conductor, but it would be largely as an arranger, I think, that I'd be recognized. And now I better do a CD of my compositions and get some sort of a Juno trifecta going on. But it's just one of these things that's really kind of hard to believe. I never realized that in my 60s, all of a sudden, people outside of Red Deer, let alone Alberta, would hear of me so much.
Why does being part of this form of entertainment and art form mean so much to you?
Just because of the emotions that it brings. I mean, sometimes we are very caught up in our individual lives because we have to do things. I mean, the daily work is something you can't avoid. You gotta feed the kids and clean the house and go to work and buy groceries and work on the yard and do all these things. And you can bring a lot of joy to all of these activities. But I think that all of a sudden being reminded through a beautiful project like that, not only of the beauty of it and how much it elevates our thinking by being exposed to it, but also to recount, in these little sound bites, you could say, these musical sound bites, the life of someone who's had an experience that is so much different from ours, who had to leave everything behind, take a dangerous voyage, transatlantic voyage, at a very young age, to a place that really, even though, no matter how much you explain what's there, you don't know what's going to be. And then build a life there, and in her case, build it twice to a degree. She found a signature on one of her contracts. She found a signature of Marie Hubert, which probably dates from, who knows, 1690 something. And I think it's in the leaflet of the album. And you look at this and you touch the past. And so not only does it touch your heart, but it touches the past and makes you think. In some cases, despite all of the stuff that's happening right now, some of it really, quite depressing. It's good to think that you can think of somebody from far, 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 from long, long ago, who, through the meanders of fate, is part of your life. It's one of the reasons you're alive.
So obviously you've got your work with Red Deer Symphony Orchestra ongoing, show this Thursday, February 13th, Rollover Beethoven. You've got a fun one, If We Had $1 Million, March 29th.
Yes, exactly.
But what is next for yourself outside of RDSO?
Well, I'm going to Hong Kong to adjudicate at the festival with my wife next week, and we're going for 3 weeks. So that's another nice thing. That's the fourth time we do that we're judges or adjudicators at the festival. It's young musicians.
What is the festival called?
The Hong Kong Schools Music and Speech Festival.
And any musical projects that you're a part of that we might hear about?
After that, well, actually, Symphony Nova Scotia just played some of my arrangements for an artist named Ben Kaplan last Friday, and they're doing something by me, I think, in March. I finished another project for the Edmonton Opera of writing, of reducing opera arias for some shows that they're doing in early April, a show called Aquarius. You can take a look at that, Aquarius, Edmonton Opera. And then it never stops. There'll be more.
No, you've been on the go for decades, and I think you've got a lot more years in you,
yes,
right?
That's right. Yes,
right.
It's true. It's true.
Awesome. Well, Claude, thank you so much for taking some time for me today, especially on short notice, and I hope that you win.
No, it's my pleasure's all mine.
The album Marie Hubert, Fille du Roi, or Daughter of the King, is available for purchase at atmaclassique.com. That's atmaclassique.com. And you can check the album out on Spotify as well. And follow Mr. LaPalme's fantastic work with the Red Deer Symphony Orchestra by visiting rdso.ca. The 2025 Juno Awards air March 30th from Vancouver.
This has been the Everything Red Deer podcast, powered by RD News Now. This podcast is produced and edited by the team at RD News Now and Pattison Media Red Deer. Make sure to download our mobile app and subscribe to our free daily newsletter by visiting rdnewsnow.com. Thanks for listening.